Doctrine and Covenants 124. After Joseph Smith and the other men's escape from Liberty Jail, they joined the saints who had fled Missouri and arrived in Illinois. The land where they gathered didn't look promising. Commerce, Illinois was a swampy wilderness covered in mosquitoes, but it had one thing going for it: no angry mobs. And so the saints went to work. They began to buy up hundreds of acres of land in both Commerce and across the Mississippi River in the Iowa Territory. The saints were hopeful about this new beginning and looked at it through the eyes of faith. The Mississippi River was navigable all the way to the ocean from here, making it accessible for both the immigration of new saints and for commercial enterprise. Still, that first summer in Nauvoo was difficult. The swampy land wasn't yet ready for homes to be built on, and so many of the gathered saints lived in tents and wagons, or simply lay out a blanket on the ground to sleep. Such conditions made the saints' exposure to the malaria-carrying mosquitoes even greater, and people began to fall ill. Joseph, who felt a responsibility for the saints, waited on and cared for them until he too became sick. However, after spending several days in bed recuperating, he felt prompted to get up and minister to the saints. Brigham Young wrote of this on July 22, 1839. Joseph arose from his bed of sickness, and the power of God rested upon him. He commenced in his own house and dooryard, commanding the sick in the name of Jesus Christ to arise and be made whole, and they were healed according to his word. He then continued to travel from house to house, from tent to tent upon the bank of the river, healing the sick as he went until he arrived at the upper stone house, where he crossed the river in a boat. As Joseph waited to cross the river, he had an interesting experience which Wilford Woodruff wrote about in his journal. A man came to Joseph and asked him if he would go about 3 miles and heal 2 of his small children who were twins, about 3 months old, and were sick nigh unto death. He was a man of the world. He had never heard a sermon preached by a Latter-day Saint. Joseph said he could not go, but he would send a man. After hesitating a moment, he turned to me and said, "You go with this man and heal his children," at the same time giving me a red silk handkerchief and said, "After you lay hands upon them, wipe their faces with it, and they shall be healed." I went and did as I was commanded, and the children were healed. But Joseph didn't just minister by offering priesthood blessings. He ministered through his personal care. One man wrote of how Joseph cared for his sick family during the fall of 1839. The prophet Joseph and his brother Hiram visited us and administered to us all, father being delirious from the effects of the fever. Upon leaving the hovel, Joseph placed his slippers upon my mother's feet and sprang upon his horse from the doorway and rode home barefoot. The next day, Joseph removed father to his own house and nursed him until he recovered. Blessedly, as the weather got colder, the mosquitoes died, the saints regained their health, and the real building of Nauvoo could begin. The saints started in earnest to drain the land and build homes. Thousands of saints from Canada, the British Isles, and the Atlantic seaboard began moving in, pitching tents and clearing farmland. The population of Nauvoo rose quickly, reaching almost 12,000. Hoping to avoid the issues that had occurred in Missouri, the saints had, early on, set out to develop a good working relationship with both the local and state governments after arriving in Illinois. Besides changing the name of the area to Nauvoo, which means beautiful in Hebrew, Joseph applied to the state legislature for a city charter. If granted, this would allow the saints to appoint their own city officials, create a locally controlled militia, gain the authority to establish a university, and have the power to better protect their religious rights. The Illinois legislature approved the charter on December 16, 1840, and shortly after, Joseph received the revelation in Doctrine and Covenants 124. This revelation is often seen as the instruction needed to establish the saints in this new era in Nauvoo, a sort of spiritual charter for the new city. It contained a commandment to build a new temple and a boarding house or hotel named the Nauvoo House. Both were to be considered holy places, and both became the main focus of building efforts over the next 6 years. For the duration of the saints' time in Nauvoo, the list of commandments and responsibilities outlined in this revelation remained the highest priority. With the Lord's word in hand, the saints' hopes were high as they began to build a new stake of Zion in the city beautiful, Nauvoo, Illinois. And that's what's happening in Come Follow Me this week.